Hello and welcome to a delayed version of the Cheese Room Wednesday show. If you're wondering why it's delayed by an hour, that's because me, your lovely host, was in the pub and forgot what time the bus was, meaning that I sat in the pub all day. Apologies for that, but anyway, we still have a tremendous show lined up for you, and my good friend Owen has agreed to step in at the last moment to fill the void. So, yes, anyway, going to ask the panel how they're doing. Owen, how's your day been, my friend?
Absolutely brilliant. Long day, enjoying the heat, but yeah, good.
I'm glad to hear. Jack, how is it in the United States of America?
It's going very well. I'm sitting here in a very comfortable air-conditioned room in North Carolina. It's been a rainy day. The sun's not out, but it's been brilliant last few days of nice summer weather. How about?
That's glad to hear. Yeah, it's been very warm in the UK the
Yeah, I
past few
know.
days. I mean, I was sat outside in a vest with my basically my chest out, and I've been pretty warm. Anyway, you've waited an hour longer than you usually have to wait. So we'll get into it nice and quick. So what we're going to be discussing in this show is our midfield options, buy or sell. So I'm going to ask you firstly, Evan. We have a lot of midfield players, right? We have a lot of options in midfield. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to list off a few names. List off 4 players, and I want you to tell me whether or not you would sell, loan, or keep them. Okay. Oliver Skipp, Hojbjerg, Harry Winks, because technically he's coming back from loan, and Alfie Devine. Loan, sell, or keep.
Keep Oliver Skipp because he's rough. He's really rough around the edges, but I think give him 2 or 3 years in a decent system where he's not partnered with Hojbjerg and it's pure defensive. If he's got 2 attacking or number 8s in front of him, he could be brilliant, like he was under Conte when he joined. Hojbjerg, sell. If only if you can get good money for him. If you can get 40, 50 mil, because he's only got 2 years left on his contract, so I don't think he's going to sign another one, especially under Ange. So I would probably sell for the right price. Winks, sell. You know, we've got players coming back who, although controversially, may not be doing the most in a Spurs shirt, like Gio and Tanguy. They will offer more than Winks. And loan Alfie Devine to a top half championship club.
Okay. Have you got any disagreements with that, Jack?
I think the biggest wild card trying to figure out what to do with the midfield we've got is figuring out 2 things. One is who realistically can they sign, obviously, and number 2, what's Bentancur's situation? How soon is he going to be fully fit and ready to play? Because I think that's the biggest issue. Is I feel like they really ought to be carrying an extra midfielder, but at this point I have no insight, nor do we, into what Bentancur's situation is going to be. So I've done 2 ACLs myself. And I'm quite a bit older and nowhere near as talented as anyone who's ever kicked a football in the professional ranks. But it's still, my understanding and my experience is that 9 months is pushing it to be fully ready to go. So you may want to watch his minutes. So I'm thinking that, Skipp should be kept, no question in my mind. At this point, there's a question as to whether Skipp or Sarr should go out on loan possibly in January, I guess you could see, depending on how things develop. I still don't know. I still don't have a good feel for who, it seems like he plays, I'm just playing a 6 and 2 8 seems to be kind of the formation in the midfield. And we don't really have players that are ideally suited for the 8s. Skipp could possibly go into that. But as far as Winks, he has to be sold. There's just not even up for discussion. It's just a matter how low you have to sell him for. Can you sell them inside of England? You'll get more money for them. If you have to sell them to the continent, you're going to take 3 or 4 million off that at least. So I don't know, what can you get, somewhere 8, 9, 10 million for them? I'm not really sure. And then Hojbjerg, I'm a big Hojbjerg fan. I think he doesn't get the credit he deserves in a lot of sense. Yeah, he annoys people. He does go backwards. He does go sideways. I just don't know how much of that is like, coaching and the way the system was set up rather than what he really wants to do, because I think he can play higher up the pitch if you put someone like Bissouma behind him who's playing a single pivot and then you 2/8s. I think he could play there, but it's not ideal. And I think, Owen, you're right. If you're going to sell him, this is the summer. His contract is up in 25. I don't know about what you can get for him, but you should be able to get at least 30 million for him at the bottom end of the price range, I would think. I haven't really looked up transfer market values that recently, but I would think that's what you could get for him. So if somebody will come in for him, you can get 30 plus. I think you got to at least consider it, but that means you got to keep an extra midfielder to play, because again, I just don't know when Bentancur is going to be fully fit. It could be October, November before he's giving you 90 minutes. So
have we lost James again?
Yeah, we did, but I think Devine. The question is, you said loan Devine to a top half championship team.
Yeah, because he's shown a lot of promise, not only in our under 21s, but also in England's youth level.
Mhm.
And I think the level of the championship now is more and more. I watched a lot of championship last season, and there's teams like Watford and Norwich who didn't particularly do well, but have had a lot younger players integrated into their system. And I think a team like that's not going to win the title by any stretch, but that's going to push for at least top 8, playoffs. I think Devine would have a place in those teams at the current level of the championship. From what he's shown in an England shirt and at Spurs, I think he's well up there with, a decent championship level player currently.
Yeah, I haven't seen him play a whole lot. I've read a lot from people who have watched him play, and definitely, I think he definitely should be looking for a championship loan. The nice thing is he's now homegrown with us. He's done his years in the system, so he can go out almost anywhere, and he still counts as homegrown. So I think that's a good idea. I would definitely like to see him playing first team football professionally. He needs that experience, no doubt.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to apologise for the fact that my internet is apparently terrible tonight. Apparently I'm connecting to the McDonald's Wi-Fi tonight. I thought my uni internet was bad, but here every 5 minutes it keeps dropping out. So if I disappear, I haven't left any of you. It's just the fact, apparently my internet here is from the 90s. So anyway, I was going to move on and ask what you think of who I personally think are my top 3 midfield options at the club, and just ask, do you think, Sarr, Bentancur and Bissouma? Now, I think we all agree they're all very good midfielders, but do we think, I'll go to you first, Owen, do we think all 3 of them fit Ange's system? And do you think all 3 of them could play together?
I think they all 3 of them could play together because of the unique role that Bissouma plays, that 6, very traditional 6. When he has played that role in the past, last season hit or miss, but we've seen it at Brighton for years. It is his best role, playing with 2 straight 8s in front of him. I think Sarr especially, way too early to tell. He showed glimpses last season. I can recall a few games like, even Milan in the Champions League. I thought he was probably our standout player. And then a week later in the Prem, he got run off the pitch, basically. And I remember he played well against Arsenal, even though we horrifically lost. He was the best player on the pitch, and a week later he was run off the pitch. He's young, he's raw, and I think it's a similar case to Devine, where he needs, but I think he needs a Premier League loan, like a low Premiership loan, to show what he can do in the league. Because realistically, even if Ange likes him, he's a young player, and he's going to be intelligent enough to know that he's not going to play 90 minutes every game this season. And I think it would be difficult to, do that. However, Bissouma Bentancur is going to be the foundation of the midfield next season. I think after, start of the season could be different. Some players could, like Sarr or Skipp could put their name in the hat and come out, amazing while Bentancur's out injured until November, October. Yeah, it could be interesting to see what happens with the midfield. Really, it's going to be a long few months. Very, very interesting pre-season, especially if we land a couple of our targets.
Jack, do you have any disagreements or possible additions to that?
No, I agree. I'm again, on limited minutes, I'm a big fan of Sarr. What he strikes me is he just looks unconcerned. He doesn't look under pressure. He dribbles with ease or with people on him. He holds himself up well. He just looks like he's a solid Premier League player. The style in which he plays is exceedingly confident, far beyond his years. So I would like to see him stick around. To your point, if you give him a loan, then yes, he needs to be playing in the Premier League. I worry about where you can play him. I mean, I don't know what Burnley need, but that's the style of play that you'd probably want. You don't want to give him Luton, who's just going to hoof it up. That's not where he needs to play, for example. So, maybe Everton, maybe Bournemouth, maybe Crystal Palace or Fulham, and others teams that are going to want to hold the ball and play with it, and not just sit in deep, because that's not what I want to see him do. If Ange is going to be around for 3 or 4 years, then he needs to be playing in a system where, and I just don't know if his best position is as a 6 in his system or an 8. Haven't seen enough of him to know whether he can make that late run into the box. Can he thread the pass? Does he have a shot? He hasn't played enough, but I definitely would like to see him given a chance, and I'm sure that he'll get a good look at preseason. So I'm a big fan of his. Obviously, Bissouma is the anchor of the midfield next year, I think, playing that 6 role. I really think that is going to be, if he's going to flourish in that, he's going to have the opportunity, and Bentancur is such a class player. I think you can put him anywhere.
Yeah, I'd have to say I broadly do agree. Okay, so the most controversial question is, and I'll go to you, Jack, first on this. The Celso, and as anyone who is a long-time viewer of the Cheese Room will know, Tanguy Ndombele, my opinions on him are pretty strongly known. Do they deserve a second chance under Ange, or a second viewing, or would you just bin them off immediately?
Okay, well, so Gio actually is probably he has the exact engine and box-to-box ability that an 8 in an Ange's system demands, I think. He's actually the one midfielder who's probably pretty well suited to the system. But with that said, he's also the player that I think you could sell for decent money. And so it's kind of like Hojbjerg. I mean, if you're trying to rebuild a squad and bring in players that actually fit the system, then he's one of the chips that you might need to cash in. I don't have a problem with Gio. I think he gives great effort. Yes, he's had some injury issues, but I would say if you can cash him in, great. If you can get to Emery and Aston Villa, all the better. Not that I want to make them better exactly, but I'm saying that if they'll pay good money for him, I definitely think he's someone that you need to look at to go out. I can't remember. I think he's up in 25. So he's got 2 years left. You ought to be able to get a decent chunk of it. You're not going to get your money back, but you're going to get a decent chunk for him. Even though I think he ought to get a look. I think the coaching staff should give him a look. As far as Tanguy, I think everyone knows the story of Tanguy. There isn't a player in the squad that has more talent, at least on the ball. And the only place I could see him playing is as a 6. Kind of like what we thought we were getting as Moussa Dembele light when he came in, as someone who could easily take the ball from the defense and move it up through the midfield because he can carry it through almost all sorts of pressure. But he's not going to work both sides of the ball. He's not going to get back. He's not going to change. I can't imagine at this point he's going to change his stripes. So I just don't know. The best thing you can do is find somebody who'll pay a part of his salary and keep that pushing, kicking that can down the road for another couple of years until his contract's up.
Yeah, I'd have to say I agree. I have pretty strong opinions on Tanguy Ndombele, which I'm sure someone will be able to find a clip of me going off a tangent on. I will refrain from that in this particular instance. My view on the Celso, he does have a very interesting skill set, although He seems more capable in Spain than England. I'll ask you as well, Owen, in regards to those two. Would you sell, keep, or loan either of them?
Okay, so regarding Tanguy, I think we're stuck with Tanguy. I think there's no way we can get money for Tanguy. I don't think there's any club. I think similar to what's happened in the past 2 years, we've had top clubs. Napoli, top club, had a brilliant squad, won the league last season, and then prior he was at Lyon for half a season, and they didn't do as well, but still massive club. So people, in his former club as well, and they're taking a gamble on him because they know they can pay a part of his wages, and at the end of it, if he's any good, they can pick him up for a half decent price. However, as you can tell by the way, no one has picked him up for a half decent price. They probably, both teams could have picked him up for 20, 25 mil, which is pennies in this market. They didn't. So I think now it's going to get to the point where top teams won't take a gamble on Tanguy. They'll overlook him, and I think we're going to be stuck with him for quite a while. And I think he could be interesting under Ange because he's an 8 with potential to. I don't think the one thing I disagree on is I think he can never be a 6. Mainly because he's stubborn and very, very lazy, in my opinion. It's a little bit controversial, but from everything I've watched of him at Tottenham and since he's gone on loan, he just seems extremely lazy and lethargic when he tries to defend or press, which I think Ange will also hate. He's not a high presser. He won't run for the team, especially in a system where, the odds are we'll play a high line. I don't think he'll do it for us. So I think we're stuck with him for a while, and I'll be interested to see how it plays out because I've always rooted for him. I like him, but I don't like his attitude. I think he's, again, one of our best players technically. And Lo Celso, I think, will be sold because I was reading a minute ago, Barcelona, Villarreal, and Aston Villa are interested. So you've got 3 big clubs who have got a lot of money sniffing around him, and he's proven himself in Spain. He never set the world alight in England, but I think he'd be a decent pickup for Villa as well. So I think he'll go for. We'll take a hit on him for sure. We'll probably get 20 mil out of the 35 odd we spent on him.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge. Is the question is, will Daniel Levy take the hit? I don't know why he wouldn't. I would hope that, seeing how big the squad is, and you're not going to pay 35 players to play in it with no Europe. So I assume he's going to be willing to take the cash where he can get it. I'm thinking, if you really want to look at our most sellable assets, not that Winks is going to get a lot of money, but let's say you get 5-8 million tops for 10, GLC you get 20. If you want to cash in on a Pierre because you think Bentancur is going to be ready in time, 30. You also could probably get 3 to 5 millions for Harvey White, who needs to go. Even though technically with that inverted fullback situation, because he can play left back, you could see that role where he comes into midfield in that inverted fullback situation, but I don't think he's got the size and ability at the Premier League levels. I don't think there's any evidence of that. So, you can get, what is that? It's called 10, 20, 30, 50. Maybe you get 50, 40 at the bottom, maybe 55 at the top for that group. That's enough to get Maddison out of Leicester now that Newcastle signed that kid from Italy. I don't know, what is his name? Well, I haven't signed him. Sorry, they haven't signed him, but I think Romano's giving the close to here we go. So that may be. It would be nice to think that if that signing goes through, then there's one less bidder for Maddison's services, and if you could sell Winks, Gio, Pierre, and White for that amount of money. Although, as I say, selling Pierre, my son's throwing crap at his screen right now, probably sitting in his Pierre jersey. But we're big fans of Pierre. I don't want to see him go, but he is one of the most sellable assets I think we've got, in the midfield. 100%. So that's the reason why you got at least entertain. If you get a good bid for him, you need to strongly consider letting him go.
What would a strong bid for him be to you, Jack?
Over 30, 35. I think at 35 would, anything approaching that, I think would. I mean, again, I don't know the transfer market that well, but I would think should be seriously considered.
Yeah, so interesting. Do you agree with that, Owen? 35 for Hojbjerg?
I'd say in today's market, he's got 2 years left on his deal, so we shouldn't be desperate to sell him. But again, he is one of our most valuable assets to sell this summer. I'd say if you can start negotiations at 30, work it up to 40, because 40 is what you pay for a Premier League top 6 defensive midfielder, and let's be honest, there isn't a ton of defensive midfielders of his age and experience knocking around at the moment.
That's true.
So he'd definitely attract interest. There'll be a lot of teams looking for someone of his profile because it's rare at the moment. There's lots of teams on the market looking for players of a similar profile and failing miserably. So it would be interesting to see just how much Levy could get. As we know, he loves to draw out negotiations and just see how long he can make things last in it. So I think, if you get a starting bid around 35, you could even work your way up to 45 in today's market.
You'd need competition if you could get a couple clubs in for him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, you never know. Maybe we could sell him to a team in Saudi Arabia. Speaking of which, no, not at all. Sidetrack. Apparently, Newcastle United are discussing the possibility of getting Ruben Neves on loan from Al Hilal. What do you think about this, gents? Do you think there's any? This seems like an interesting loan opportunity, doesn't it? I wonder why.
It's the exact same thing that happens earlier this year when Ronaldo went. And not even days later, they were going, well, because obviously the connections between Newcastle, Saudi Arabia, and even, I won't go into detail because of the controversy, but Chelsea and the PAF and Saudi Arabia and all the links together and what's going on business-wise there is all a tiny bit sketchy, but we've seen the exact same links when Ronaldo went there and there was talks about, if Newcastle qualified for the Champions League, he has an obligation to go on loan, which obviously never happened. So I think things like this are probably not true, because if they were, I think the owners of Newcastle and Saudi as a whole would get in quite a lot of trouble. I think it's quite ridiculous, to be honest, but it would be nice to have him back in the Prem and not away over there.
Jack, what do you reckon about this? Do you reckon it's a possibility, or do you think it's a bit of a scandal?
Well, no disrespect to Footy Insider 24/7, right? Not exactly tier 1 source material, clearly. But with that said, I think and I think you're right. I mean, again, we know how this game works. Some blog could do an article based on betting odds, and eventually it shows up in Sky's Twitter feed about a link. It's just ridiculous. So I don't put any credibility in this link. But if that starts to occur, if you see, the PIF, who controls 4 clubs now, taking dead wood off of particularly Chelsea. Now this is a Wolves situation. We can turn to the Chelsea thing if you want. I've got my own thoughts on that, but this is a problem in my estimation. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert on the Premier League rules. I'm not interested, nor FFP necessarily. But the idea that you could buy it from one team, take the player into Saudi Arabia and loan him back to another, and so that you don't have to show the certain expenditures on your books if you're Newcastle, which would seem like a clear circumvention of FFP rules. I think this is something I would hope both UEFA and the Premier League would be watching, and I don't know what mechanisms they have to deal with this, but if this results, I mean, it's crap. It's total crap.
I have to say, I do agree. And just to respond to Adrian here, personally, I think we're going to struggle to move Tanguy Ndombele onto. I think he'd struggle to sign up for Universal Credit. Personally, that's how much I rate him. But anyway, moving on.
And I even get that joke. Anyway.
I didn't want. I was worried I'd have to explain it to you. But anyway.
No, I'm very familiar.
Anyway,
That's what
moving on.
happens when you have two kids living in the UK. Yep. All right.
Anyway, moving on. We're looking at goalkeeping options, and here's what our man Fabrizio says. So, we're looking at a deal for David Raya, but we consider 40 million to be too high. And we're looking at Georgie. Okay, I'm going to give this a go. Mamadashvili. Tremendous,
Yes.
Jack. Okay, so what do we think about Georgie Mamadashvili? Do we have any strong opinions on him? I'll go Jack first.
I've never seen him play. I've never heard of him until today. And now if we don't sign him, I'm going to go full Levy out. I mean, I have no idea. I do know. I think this might have been one of the goalkeepers, not Raya, but one of the goalkeepers that were linked with. I heard Brighton might be linked with. So whoever Brighton was linked with, we should get that person. Just whoever they target, go after them because their scouting network's far better than ours.
Owen, do you have any strong opinions on Mamadashvili? Have you watched him play at all?
Bits. When Brian Hill was out on loan at Valencia last season, I think I might have watched him 4 or 5 times. And obviously, since we've been linked, I've gone, done my research, looked at clips, comps, whatever. Brilliant shot stopper. On par with Lloris when he was younger. He looks great. However, and he's still young, which is obviously a bonus, but what we're looking for is distribution. And currently it just does not look like he can do that whatsoever.
That's interesting. I can't lie. I was going to do some research today, but was in the pub. So sorry everybody.
But they don't have Wi-Fi at the pub. You couldn't do your research there.
No, well, I ended up having a lengthy conversation with a bloke from Newcastle about the Damned and the Cure. So got distracted.
Priorities.
Anyway, I mean, £2.50 pints. What can you do? Anyway, so 40 million for David Raya. Is that an outrageous fee for someone with only 12 months left on their contract? Personally, yes. I think he's a very good keeper. Yes, already a firm yes. What do you think a reasonable fee for him would be then?
30, and even that hurts. Like, only because he's the best option that we've been linked with would I say 30 is somewhat reasonable. There's so many players currently, even so far in this window, that have gone for pennies on the last year of their contract, and we're looking at spending this much money on Premier League proven goalkeeper, someone that would suit the new system by the looks of it, but is not perfect. Short passing needs work, shots from range needs work, but he's young, it could probably improve. He isn't going to solve all our problems. We're still going to concede a lot of goals, and going out from the back, especially if we don't change up our defense, is still going to be rough. I think if you can haggle it down to 30 mil, between 25 and 30 mil, I wouldn't throw my toys at the pram because he's a good keeper, but I think you could do better.
Yeah, but isn't us paying 40 million for him basically showing that Daniel Levy hates the Spurs fans and shows zero ambition, even though he only has a year left in his contract? Jack, what do you think would be a reasonable fee for Raya? Should we not pay 80 million for him just to show we're ambitious?
No, throwing money away is not ambition, that's for sure. But paying for the players that will make you better is ambitious. And the thing that with Raya, I mean, I wouldn't, if we paid 40, I would not. It's not my money, and it's not going to change ticket prices or it's not going to change merchandise. It's not going to change much, quite frankly. We don't have a lot of great success in paying big dollars. We don't have a lot of success, period, in our recruitment. Obviously, the last 5 years, we have more misses than hits, I think. But the ridiculousness of the fee, of course, is that there's no one at all in form, and he's willing to sit for 12 months and run out of his contract. and they've signed his replacement. So in my opinion, there's no rush. It's not like even if you paid the 40, he's going to show up tomorrow and start training. There is absolutely zero rush, and Twitter needs to just, well, that's a ridiculous statement I was getting ready to say. I mean, there's no point in paying 40 right now. I would continue to wait and continue to find other options to let Brentford decide whether or not they want 25 or 30 or 0, because that's basically right now what they're looking at. I realize that people might bring the Jack Grealish situation back to us, which was a complete cock up from Levy. Obviously, he should have paid the money, and it was a good deal at the time, and he's trying to pinch a few million out. I don't think that's the situation here, because even if you lose Raya, he's not Jack Grealish, and so you can find replacements. He's a good ready-made keeper for the Premier League. He has the footwork he has the ball playing ability that we need. He's a little bit weak on shots outside the box, but that's probably the only weakness in his game. So I'm fine waiting, but I don't see any reason that you need to stump up the 40 million today. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I have to say I do agree. I mean, he's away on international duty. He's got a year left in his contract. It's not like even if we signed him today, he wouldn't show up for another few weeks. We can afford to haggle a little bit on this. And if Brentford want to be stubborn, well, I can bloody assure Brentford, Daniel Levy can be more stubborn than the bloke sat in the corner of a Wetherspoons with his 9th pint of whatever horrific ale they're selling for £1.70. And that's not an anecdote from today, I assure you. Anyway, we're going to move on. Next up, James Maddison.
Sweet.
So it seems as if Newcastle are insisting on the Maddison deal, and they don't want a long saga. He's their top target. However, it seems like we've been working on the player side of the deal. So we've been in contact with Maddison and his agents, and we're pushing, but no bid has been submitted to Leicester. What do we think about that, and what do we think about Maddison as a player? Owen, what do we think?
I think Maddison is looking likely more and more by the day. However, I've seen things today over City, obviously having a real possibility of losing Bernardo Silva and losing Gundogan today to Barcelona. I think there's a real likelihood they could go in for Maddison, which would obviously rule us all out of the deal. But I think if City stay out of the race and pursue alternative targets, I wouldn't mind paying. I think the asking price, correct me if I'm wrong, is 50 mil, which does seem like a lot. However, I think it's one that will brood over time. I think Leicester know they're going to lose him. Either they're going to lose him, or something's going to happen further down the window that's going to be far uglier. He's going to throw his toys out the pram. Because he's an England international, he has to be playing in the Premier League, and they know that Leicester are going to play the waiting game and try and get the highest bid. So I think if we can wait out the other clubs, it will be an amazing deal. But if we rush into it, which hopefully we don't, it could be really messy because he's probably not worth 50 mil from a Championship side.
Okay, Jack. Pretend you're Maddison, okay?
Yeah.
Just been relegated. You have two potential options, Spurs or Newcastle. But aside your own personal biases, your own personal allegiances, from a purely career move, where do you go?
Purely a career move. So I'm not, so you say, well, that, I would say, unless I have some moral aversion to working for Saudi Arabia and Newcastle, then I would say the career move would be to go with a known coach, a team that has got ambition, who is playing in the Champions League. I mean, that's where you would go if you're going to go pure career. But the reality is that professional footballers don't make their decisions solely and even necessarily number one on that, because outside of City, which is the only team that guarantees you trophies, it's all a bit of a crapshoot. So, so then you say, you're right. You have to go with, where am I going to be living? Do I want to live in London? Do I want to live in Newcastle? Where does my family want to live? How much of my money am I going to get paid? Am I get paid more at Tottenham or more at Newcastle? I mean, those things come into it. without doubt. So, but from a pure career move, I just don't see how anyone could look at Tottenham's situation and say that's where I want to go. Now, if Postecoglou were 2 years into it and you were a top four and you saw the progress being made, and Harry had renewed his contract, that'd be different. But we're not there. That's a year at least down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, obviously, one big benefit we do have, aside from the stadium and the infrastructure we have at the club, is obviously it's London and not Newcastle. Which, to be fair, Newcastle, cheap drinks, but I don't think James Maddison's making a move for the £1 Jaeger bombs, which I have been told exist in Newcastle. Yeah, he's not Jack Grealish. Come on, we all know Jack Grealish should be going to Newcastle for the £1 Jaeger bombs and the £2 pints. Which at this point I'm moving to Newcastle for those, but whatever. Yeah. I do find it odd that if it comes down to a personal situation for Maddison, he would choose us. But I would hope that we could bid a reasonable fee. And obviously, look, Newcastle might be owned by the Saudi Arabian government. That's my opinion, not the opinion of the cheese room. If you are unhappy with that statement, please direct all hatred towards me on Twitter, which is @JamesTheDrinker, and I will be completely ignoring you. But they haven't thrown their money around that much, and I would hope that as the most profitable football club in the world, we could spend some of that. But who knows? Maddison. I'll bring up some of his stats here. Brilliant player. We've lacked a player like him since Eriksen left. 8th in the Premier League for assists, top 4 for shots. That's a ridiculous statistic for a midfielder. Created 347 chances in the top 3. He would be a tremendous addition to our squad.
It's also interesting to add he's been very, very injured.
Definitely. You just think, what could he do in a better squad of players? If he's got if he's creating that many chances, what can he do with someone like Harry Kane and Son Heung-min, who statistically overperform expected goals very consistently? He could be the top assister in the Premier League within a season. So I really hope he does come to Spurs, because I do think he's a spectacular player. But I wouldn't entirely blame him if he did go to Newcastle. Although if he does go to Newcastle, obviously, he might be too pissed to get on the pitch. But fair play, mate. Anyway, we're going to move on from that.
Well, 1 second. I just want to mention. You said 50. I don't think 50 million is an outrageous bid. A price. I don't for a proven player who you're going to get production from. Granted, when he's healthy, but I think that players go through those times. There was a time when Harry Kane was thought to be injury prone. You can fix it if you want to. So I don't have any doubt that 50 is a reasonable price for him. By the way, there was this guy early in the chat who said Ronnie, I guess technically. I didn't realize he was serious, but Fricho did say that we've reached personal terms with this Vicario guy. It was 24 minutes ago.
24 minutes. 2 seconds. I will attempt to locate that.
Yeah. So we've got personal terms agreed with Raya and with Vicario on a contract to 2028 with Vicario. So we're really putting pressure on Brentford.
So do we think that's a... Oh, sorry. I've just seen the tweet right now. From Fabrizio, Tottenham have reached agreement on personal terms with Vicario on a 5-year contract until 2028. Spurs have also agreed personal terms with Raya, but Brentford's 40 million asking price is considered too high. Official bid to Empoli for Vicario soon. Yeah, so this does seem like we are, keeping our options open and potentially pressuring Brentford. I can't lie, haven't watched much of Vicario. However, I'm glad that at very least, we're not just settling on one player, going to haggle for 4 months, and if we don't get him, we don't get a new keeper. So it does look like we're getting someone through the door. So
earlier, this says a tier 2 source, SB Nation, I think tier 2, says we got verbal agreement at 20 million with Empoli for the deal. So I mean, Brentford can say, all right, how much you think you're going to get for him? We got 20 million in personal terms. I'm not saying that's real, that the verbal agreement's made to be broken, but certainly seems that there's pressure being put. If they want to sell Raya, they need to change that asking price. It sounds like.
Yeah, that does very much seem what it sounds like, and that does almost seem like a change in tactics from our recruitment team, which, let's be honest, I think all of us have been incredibly critical of, especially me, after a few drinks. So I have to say that's quite positive. Now, I'm just going to ask, I'll start with Jack first. Realistically, what would your ideal midfield three be, including transfers, be first game of the season or, next season? What would it be?
Bissouma in the 6. Bentancur given a chance at the 8. And then a signing coming in to the other side, and that would be Maddison would be fine, although I'm not sure, he might not be better out on the wing and bring Kulusevski and give him a shot at the 8. That might be possible. Again, I'm a little out of my depth, I'll be honest with you, in terms of trying to ascertain that type of decision. There's a guy that we've been linked with it's from Fabrizio. Hold on, let me find it. I don't know him, maybe you do. Xavi Simons, Dutch player, a Barca La Masia graduate. He had 18 goals and 8 assists last season, playing a left-sided attacking midfielder, left wing. According to my expert stats person, very, very good on the ball, great passer, 5'10", so he's not short, but he's not thick in the middle either. And he fits he might fit this kind of what we've dubbed on the cheese room, the low-calorie Man City approach to our football playing. So that's somebody who's quick, somebody who's got some good touch. I mean, that would be my preferred. So a signing to go with Bissouma and Bentancur, I think, is the way I'd go. And I'm not happy with Maddison or anybody else.
Owen, what's your preferred realistic midfield three next season?
First game of the season, if everyone's fit, hypothetically, including Bentancur, who we know won't be fit. Bissouma in the 6, Bentancur in the 8, and either Maddison as the ideal top target as an advanced state, or someone with a similar profile, as Jack said, like a Xavi Simons kind of profile. Someone who will make those runs into the box, because we've seen Bentancur do it at times last season. He went on that great run in, the new year. However, he hasn't shown he can do it all the time. He's been known to be very backwards and sideways on occasion. So it would be interesting to have an advanced state, because as you said earlier, we haven't had one since Eriksen.
And I see in the chats we got somebody who's related to me says that Maddison's last 4 seasons is 36, 31, 31, 35, and 30. So I think that I thought he missed a lot more games last season. I don't follow Leicester. I thought he missed, like you were saying, Owen, I thought he missed a ton of games last year, but I guess maybe he didn't. I know he had like 18 and 12, but I thought he played a lot fewer games.
I'm not sure how many of those were 90s necessarily.
Yeah, fair point. Like appearances versus then starts. Yeah, that's true. I feel like he might have been coming on a fair amount, but he did at least. I mean, all seriousness, I mean, if you got enough midfielders, you could certainly have a rotation where you're not playing 3 midfielders 90 minutes anyway. So
he played 2,480 minutes last season, which I have no clue what that is divided by 90.
Well, Pierre played over 4,000, if that gives you some basis.
Significantly fewer minutes. But yeah, all of Maddison's underlying statistics are really good. 5 shot getting actions a game. That's really good. We don't have players that can do those things. We have a lot of defensive midfielders. 28 starts last season. That's good.
Yeah, that is.
Okay, so we have a question from the comments.
I just saw that.
Would you play Kane as one of the two eights behind Son, Richarlison, and Kulusevski?
No.
What do you reckon? Okay.
No. I mean, if you adopt a 4-2-3-1 and you want to play Kane behind Richarlison, that is the only place that I can imagine. But you can't play him as an 8. I mean, let me rephrase that. He's the best midfielder, center back, and striker at the club. I'll go. I'll say that possibly, maybe not a center back, but second best center back. I mean, but no, I don't see him playing the 8 in Ange's system. That would be a waste of his time.
Yeah, I will say I think a lot of modern football player. In modern football, particularly, your starting position doesn't dictate your role.
That's true.
Harry Kane does drop into that, almost false 9 role, but you wouldn't put Lionel Messi at 26 of Barcelona in the midfield, would you? And that is very similar to the role Kane performs these days, right?
Yeah, and Ange has played a false 9, so I mean he can do that. No, Kane could do that He's doing that already half the time.
So the debate is Lionel Messi or Harry Kane. I'm saying Harry Kane personally. I mean,
current Harry Kane.
Current, yeah, Harry Kane.
Currently, you mean like as of today?
Yeah.
Okay, well then, fine. Then
I don't know. I don't know. I think Messi was carried by Iniesta and Xavi. I mean, if you put me in that
we don't have
Barcelona
time for this.
team,
No.
I score a bunch of goals, and I'm out of breath after 5 minutes, mate.
There was one season he had like 73 goals and 40 assists. I don't want to hear it. It's not even up for debate.
It was 90 plus goals.
Whatever.
I am, of course, joking. I've just seen that Gundogan has agreed to join Barcelona on a free. Yep. Is Gundogan someone we should have been looking at on a free transfer? Owen?
Unrealistic. I mean, he would be in in Ange's system, he would have been, a centerpiece. He would have been perfect in that advanced state. But no, it's unrealistic. He's been the most underrated player in the Premier League for almost as long as I can remember. The past 2, 3, 4 years, he's just been on another level. But he's just, if he was in a team like Tottenham and he was performing at the level he does at City, everyone would be watching him and going, "Oh my word, he's one of the best players in the league." I would love him at Spurs. He's one of my favourite players, but he deserves that massive move to Barcelona. He's been the best of the best since he was at Dortmund, since he was a kid. I would have loved him at Tottenham. I would have always loved him at Tottenham, but I'm glad he's got the big move.
Yeah. Jack, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, Gundogan's never playing for Tottenham, and there's no even point of even sending an email. I mean, it's just pointless. He's not going to play for Tottenham, so there's no reason to waste the time.
Yeah, but Jack, that's a negative attitude. Like, I've gone into nightclubs before and thought, no way that girl's interested in me. Is that a reason to not go and talk to her? Of course not, because you never know. And on occasions, I thought that I've gone up and had a chat with her, and it turns
fair
out
enough.
She thought I was
we should have rang him up. We should have rang him up. You're right.
You don't know, do you? But you see, everyone gets.
Well, do you think he thinks Daniel Levy's good looking?
Well, that's quite unlikely. I don't think his wife is good
sharp
looking,
dresser.
But here's the thing. Okay, everybody took the piss out of me when I said I was a big fan of Jorginho. But everyone loves Gundogan, and I think Jorginho has a better skill set than Gundogan.
No.
And Maurizio Sarri. No, don't argue, because Pep wanted Jorginho at City before he went to Chelsea. So I'm going to give a big shrug from Pulp Fiction. Anyway.
All right. We're getting off course of our midfield keep, sell, and loan.
Well, okay. So we'll get back on track. I didn't promise that this would be a focused episode of the Cheese Room. If I'm hosting, It's
That's fair.
more of a loose conversation.
I get that.
By the way, feel free to put your comments in, questions to the panel. We will definitely talk about them. Unless it's a question about me personally, because I don't care about your opinions, basically, personally. But if it's about football, I will answer it. Anyway, so we're going to go to this. Back to this. Okay. Perisic. Would either of you keep Perisic for another season, or would you let him go? Owen, we'll go to you first.
I don't know my opinion on this. See, I would keep him around for a season because I feel like he is going to be good backup on that left wing. It's only 2-3 years ago he won the treble with Bayern Munich playing in that role, and the left wing back thing's been a Conte experiment from Inter Milan and Tottenham, and it's worked at times. He's good at some things, he's poor at not, but he's proven to be an amazing goal scorer. He's got a great ball on him. When he plays in the role he's always been best at. So I wouldn't mind, as a very much squad player, someone that comes in when necessary, not at all fine to start or anything. But I think he's probably a good head in the dressing room. He's had so much experience. He's won everything. He's played in every country. He knows the squad well. I wouldn't see any harm in it. But if he did go, I definitely would not be upset.
What do you think, Jack?
Well, so he would. So Ange likes to play with his wingers obviously very high and very wide. He wants the fullbacks and the eights coming on those underlapping runs. So, you have to decide for yourself is Perisic someone you want high and on the touch, taking the fullbacks on and getting the ball across? And I will say that he seemed to struggle with that at a number of times. He one of the things that he and Son like to do is they like to drift inside and take those and cut inside and take those shots. We don't really have anyone who wants to stay out wide and get down to the line and cross it back, as a lot of the wingers for the end system seems to do, from what I can tell. So I'm not really sure I don't know how he fits, and I don't really love the idea of him playing a fullback in a back four, obviously. So I'm just not sure where he fits. That's up to the coach. I mean, he'll get a chance, I assume, in preseason. You paid nothing for him. You're just paying him a boatload of wages. So I would be fine him going out the door to save the wages, assuming he's under contract. So it's up to the player and the club how they want to handle it. But you don't have a lot invested in him, so letting him walk isn't a big problem for me. And so I'm just not sure where he fits in his system.
Yeah, I'd have to say I agree. I do fail to see where he fits in beyond that wing-back role. As Steve, or as I'm going to call him, Big Steve, because anyone called Steve, I'll call Big Steve, says, what would Perisic offer to an Ange system? He can't play that inverted left winger role, I don't think. I don't think he can necessarily play that really high line role. I don't think he's got the pace or the energy for that at his age. And actually, it's one of the rare cheese room shows where there's more young people than middle-aged people. So, getting the demographic age down a bit. Sorry, Jack. But yeah, I don't know if he can necessarily play that role. If Ange has played back threes at times, and if Perisic says, look, I'm not giving up my 200 grand a week contract, I'm going to be here another year, which, fair enough. Maybe he's worth keeping for the occasional game where Ange does want to play a back three. And as a positive voice in the dressing room, that's reasonable. I can get that. And apparently another Steve said he looked brilliant against Spain the other night. So
he always looks good for Croatia.
Mate, yeah, it's like any Welsh player.
To note, I'm quite certain he was playing on the wing that night as well. I don't think they play a back three.
No, he's always playing in the front three for Croatia, from what I see. And that's where I would keep him.
Which is interesting. Because, playing against Spain, ironically, he probably would have been running against Pedro Porro. So, if he played awesome and run Pedro Porro ragged, either it's really embarrassing or he still has it in him.
Yeah, I think for players like that for their national team, there's a little bit of difference. Joe Allen always looked like the Welsh Perlo, but I wouldn't want Spurs to necessarily have ever signed him, right? But maybe I'm a biased Welshman. I am a biased Welshman because Ben Davies is the Welsh Maldini. Anyway, apparently he played left back for Croatia for the entire World Cup.
I didn't remember that. Although I'd be honest with you, I didn't
also-
watch any of Croatia's games.
I'm pretending the World Cup didn't happen personally. All I remember is the Ukraine playoff final. Anyway, and being very upset in a bar because England scored twice against us. That's the extent of my memory of the World Cup. Anyway, so Kulusevski, we signed him on a permanent.
Oh, sorry. Quickly, I was incorrect. Perisic was playing in a flat back 4 the other day, and had a remarkable 9 score on sofa score, playing in a flat 4 at left back.
I stand corrected. I always felt like he played it up top for them, so I guess I was wrong.
So
yeah, he always plays well for Croatia. That I'm right about. I mean, he puts in great performances for Croatia.
So perhaps that is a role for him under big Aussie man Ange's Spurs. Anyway, Dejan Kulusevski, it was dragged out a little bit because we got 5 million, 5 big ones off the agreed transfer fee. Are we happy that he signed a permanent deal, or are we unhappy? We'll go to you first, Jack. What do you think about him signing permanently?
It's a no-brainer. I don't understand. I don't understand the chatter about maybe we shouldn't sign him or what have you. That makes no sense because of what. Again, that was when I assumed we were going to sign him for 35, and I'm saying, who are we buying for 35? Who do we trust this organization to buy for 35? That's going to give you a better player than Kulusevski. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. And the fact that they got him for 30, I don't know how that crowdfunding call is to try and raise the extra $5 million to send to Juventus because people are clearly embarrassed that we renegotiated the deal. Again, that is another mystifying Twitter phenomenon. But yeah, no, I don't think there's any question. The guy, he had a poor year, but who didn't other than Kane? So I mean, and Bentancur. So I'm not judging him, just on last year or just on the previous year. I just look at his total skill set, what he brings to the table, and I think that it's a no-brainer to bring him in. And I'm glad they saved the $5 million.
Do we agree with that, Owen?
Absolutely. Yeah, amazing player. Again, he had a poor year. He showed glimpses, I think, in another system. I think he was better under Ryan Mason. Felt more expressive. He got into our half space a lot more, which is where he's at his best. And I think under Ange, it could be really interesting because he's always said in interviews, and while he was in Italy especially, and why he didn't join Conte into Milan to begin with before he went to Juve, was he isn't a right winger in his head. He's an old, I don't know what you call it, quite an old-fashioned Italian number 10 role called a mezzala or something, which could be interesting because it looks like something that could fit under Ange because it is quite literally an advanced state with more roles and a lot of movement, and something that could be interesting because we all know his best plays in the half space where he cuts on his left and links play with Kane or Son or anyone else. His passing and shooting is the best when he's going towards a box. If he's out on the wide doing nothing, he is quite nothing at times. So it could be interesting to see what happens with him. And I'm really happy he stayed.
Yeah, I mean, I say I completely agree. I mean, everyone at the club's had a bad season. It's been pretty, aside from Harry Kane, because Harry Kane is the second messiah, I can't lie, of football, at least of English football. When everyone around you is having a shit night, if you got a night out and everyone's having in a bad mood and the music's terrible and the drinks cost fucking £6, yeah, you're going to be in a pissy mood, right? You're not going to be your best, but that's not your fault, is it? Anyway, moving on from a personal anecdote, what we'll go to is apparently Manchester United are looking to get rid of Donny van der Beek. Now, would either of you, I'll go to you, Owen, first, would you be interested in seeing the Dutchman at Spurs?
Absolutely. Going back, if you can null the injuries out of him and slowly weave him back in. I think his issue while he was out last season was he got rushed right back in after not playing football for nearly 8 months by Ten Hag and suffered a serious injury. I think if you can ease him in to a side that plays a system like Ange's, because he is the definition of what Ange wants from his eights. He links the play, he makes amazing runs into the box, but he's also very positionally aware. You know, I watched him a lot at Ajax, especially in that Champions League run. And, you know, he had glimpses at United. I wouldn't, you know, if you can, because obviously he's not going to cost much. If you take a 10 mil gamble on him, you're not going to lose much. And it's a very Levy move, I feel. It is a very, very Levy move.
Do you agree with that one, Jack?
I can't say I have a fully formed opinion on Donny, other than to say it should be after we've exhausted lots of other options. I mean, I would think that's one of these things where, yeah, you know, in the Paratici type of system where you've got a lot of, you know, irons in the fire, and that might be one of them. And I certainly would say it would be if he's willing to, you know, I don't know what he's getting paid at Manchester United, but it's too much. Whatever it is, it's way too much because they pay all of their players too much, I assume. And you're right, the transfer fee should be extremely little, but I would say he should be your 5th or 6th, 7th target in that spot, just because he hasn't played much football recently. So I just don't know. I mean, yeah, when he, you know, 4 years ago at Ajax, he did look pretty brilliant, but he's, you know, there's a lot of reasons why he's lost his form, I'm sure. And one of them is the disappearing act that so many players do at Manchester United. But yeah, I wouldn't make it a high priority.
He's, according to my sources, earning 120 grand a week at United, which for
Really?
United seems very modest.
That seems like a typo.
Yeah, very much so. Are we sure it's not 1,200,000 grand a week? I mean,
I don't want to pay him 120 at Spurs. I can tell you that.
Well, I mean, we're paying Tongi and Ndombele 200 grand.
I know that's sorry, Donny, but we're not gonna make that mistake again. I mean, overpaying players. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he can do better than Tongi and Ndombele could against Morecambe in League One on my 19th birthday. But you know, aside from that,
saying you're wrong.
Anywho, I will say if Ten Hag can't get him to rediscover his form, why would you work under Ange? Well, Ten Hag is playing a slightly different set of football at Man United, neither at Ajax, and he's got guys like Eriksen to work with. You know, he has a slightly different, and Bruno Fernandes. So why does he? You know, he doesn't need to get him to work. Basically, he has a higher caliber of individuals.
When he did play, he didn't look awful, and he was rushed back after not playing for, you know, Ten Hag was probably desperate to rejuvenate him and get him back to that player that he was. So he'd been rushed back from either 12 months of being injured or just not playing for whatever reason under Ranić, Solskjaer, and back when he was playing for Everton as well. So yeah, there's many reasons why it hasn't worked out from United, especially this year. You know, he's been out since, well, bloody hell, it must be since really, really early in the season. You know, I think there is still hope for him. He's really, really young. This isn't a Dele Alli situation.
He's 26.
Yeah, that's young for a Premier League player. You know, he's definitely not old. He hasn't hit his prime yet. He has a good few years, and he's playing for United, which has the most stacked midfielder. He isn't going to break him now, and he'll definitely leave. And I think, you know, he isn't going to get a massive move, but I think, you know, a gamble on him wouldn't be a bad idea. And I think a lot of clubs would say the same thing.
I'm not disagreeing. I mean, again, he has looked good in the past. For me, I think there are other candidates I'd rather put money towards, whether it be, you know, Alex Scott, which would be a flyer who hasn't played in Premier League, Kamada or Hatate, some of these people, or the player, the kid from the Eredivisie, Jave that I mentioned earlier. I'd rather possibly go put money towards them than. But without we really what I see we really need is an established, experienced player who has a very low possibility of not working. And Madison fits that. I'm sure there's smart people out there in the chat can say there are 2 or 3 other players who fits the rule of, you know what, it's the very they're going to be successful to a certain level. They may not hit the heights that you hope, but they're going to be a solid player for us. Then you take a flyer on a younger player, and I just don't know if Benderbeek makes that. I think one established player and one that you're reaching a little bit at a younger player would be what we should be looking for.
Yeah, I have to say, I agree. Also, everyone watching, please do hit the like button, and
if you can find it.
If you are interested, the Patreon's only £3 a month, and you get lots of special features. You get to support the show, support, everyone more competent than me, and support the show to keep on going. And you get access to the group chat, where if you really want, you can have a conversation with me while I'm, mostly sober, which I don't know why you'd ever want to do, but you are welcome
24/7, 365 global chat rooms.
Yes, and plenty of more interesting people like Steve, Cooler, HG, my father,
Paul Muir,
Paul, exactly. Plenty of very interesting people there.
Seb,
yes, everyone's in there, so if you're not in there, then what are you doing? There you are. That lists everything. Also, on Friday, we'll be back to discuss the attacking options. I think Cooler, HG, can't remember who else is going to be there, but it's going to be a good show, and it won't be late because the hosts won't have been stuck at the pub. So please do tune in for that. It'll be 9 o'clock on Friday. It's going to be a brilliant show. Anyway, please do subscribe to the Cheese Room if you haven't already. If you don't, I'll be very upset. Leave a like. It does really help us, especially with YouTube's algorithm, because Harvey Barnes. Yeah, so we've been going for about an hour and 6 minutes on this delayed show. So we're going to end it here. Thank you very much for coming on, Owen. At the last moment, I texted you from the pub, so I appreciate you coming on.
I was also in the pub when you messaged me.
Good luck. Wait. What were you drinking in the pub?
Foster's, so nothing nice.
Oh,
Foster's.
Yeah. I feel
Foster's.
Ashamed.
Oh dear. Jack, thank you for coming on. Apologies for the later start than usual.
No, not a problem. I'm just thankful you guys were able to come in at all, because I don't think I'd be a very entertaining one-man show. So I really, really, really appreciate it a lot.
Anyway, thank you both for coming on. Please do be sure to tune in on Friday, and when I find it, I've only got one last thing to say. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Spurs.